everyone, it's Sylvia from Fairlight Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do a really fun tag, and it's 10 beautiful decks, and it's a VR to Christine Rose L. So you probably guessed what this video is about. It's about beautiful decks because, let's face it, we really love our decks, don't we? Because otherwise we wouldn't be here. I mean, we wouldn't be tarot reader, we wouldn't be tarot collectors, we wouldn't be tarot aficionados, or however you want to call yourself. If you're here, you like to look at tarot decks, oracle decks, you like the cards, for some reason you find them beautiful, you find them pleasing to the eyes, but also to the soul. And I really like this tag because at the beginning I thought, when I watched the video, I thought, oh, it might be one of those videos about, you know, I'm showing you my 10 most beautiful decks. And I've done that tag as well. And to be honest with you, I enjoy watching other people doing the same tag, but this is actually different. And that's why I'm so very happy about responding with a video on my own, because it's not just about aesthetics. So let's have a look, because the prompts are so much better than explaining something. I always prefer to show you. So the first prompt is a tarot deck that is beautiful in design. And in this case, I had to go with the Witch Sister Tarot, which is by Julia Jeffrey. And yes, if you think he looks familiar, it does. Julia Jeffrey is also the creator of the Tarot of the Hidden Realm. Also, both of them published by Llewellyn, by the way. And the reason why I'm mentioning that, it's because I feel that the design of a deck includes, let's say, the box, it includes the guidebook, it includes the quality, the cardstock, pretty much everything. And I think that Llewellyn is always doing a fantastic job when it comes to these tarot decks, because they come with a really beautiful, quite expensive probably to produce, wraparound tarot deck with a magnetic closure, and then, you know, you enter into a realm, and it's a different thing than what you would expect if you don't have any experience with Llewellyn decks. First of all, for example, the book, the guidebook, is more like a companion book. And you will notice that, at least for all of the Llewellyn decks that I have, the title of the guidebook is not the title of the deck or the name of the deck. So this is the Witch Sister Tarot, but the guidebook is actually called Taking Flight with Your Witch Sisters. So there's always something different, and I have to say, I have learned to enjoy that. Initially, when I was putting all of my decks into bags, because let's face it, this is a really beautiful box, but it does occupy a lot of space. So in my case, I was actually putting the decks in a bag, and I was getting rid of the box. And then I was looking at the guidebook, and I forgot the name. At that point, I would have gotten a name of the deck, because the guidebook doesn't help. Obviously, when you go into the guidebook, you will see the name of the deck for sure. What I really like about the design in general about Llewellyn decks is that the companion book has a page, a full page actually, in color of the cards for each and every card. So even the minors, which is something that you don't take for granted, because many decks would have the same kind of settings when it comes to the majors, but they don't do the same when it comes to the minors. I really appreciate that, and it's something that makes these books something that you want in your shelves. You know, you want to look at them even when you're not necessarily using the deck. And when the design is absolutely gorgeous, like this one by Julia Jeffrey, of course, it's also very pleasing to the eyes. Now, let's have a look at the deck, because we're all here to have a look at the cards, of course. These are the backs, by the way. Let me just zoom in a little bit just to be able to... I don't want to lose sight of my Jerry. By the way, say hi to Jerry. Hi, Jerry. This, if you haven't seen my video, my Mind, Body, Spirit Festival in Sydney haul video, Jerry is a block of marble, basically, has been carved out of the block, a very heavy, I must say, quite heavy block of marble. And but it was broken, you know, at the top, and so it has been put back together with the kintsugi art style or method, As you can see here, this was what originally it looked like. So all of this part was broken like this. So instead of putting it back together with the traditional gold paste, like you would see that in the kintsugi, and the artist actually put it back together with semi-precious stones. You've got your amethyst in there, labradorite, etc. So this is a really, I do cherish my Jerry. I had to name it. I don't know whether Jerry is a good name, but it felt like a Jerry to me because it's got a kind of a whimsical kind of face, I think. Anyway, sorry, getting back to the tarot deck, look how beautiful these backs are. I know, they're not reversible, and if you shuffle with reversals, that could be a problem, but they are so absolutely beautiful. And by the way, if you're into colors like I am so trying to find a fountain pen ink that resembles, let's say, this color, this dusty kind of pink. I'm thinking Teranishi Opera Rose could be like that, but anyway, sorry, I'm just you know, going out of the topic. So this deck is fantastic. It's really beautiful. The design is amazing. I was saying it is the Llewellyn cardstock. So do you like the Llewellyn cardstock? Because I feel this argument about cardstock has got the entire tarot community divided. I personally like it. It's very shuffleable. It's not one of those decks that will be, let's say, will become a collectible item, because the cardstock is not one of those, but you never know, because in many cases a deck, even a mass market deck, becomes a collectible item. When it goes out of print, it becomes hard to find. People are really willing to pay a lot of money for them. And thinking about a few US games decks, for example, the Crow Magic's Tarot, well, even all of Natalie Hertz's decks, for example, and other decks. So, you know, you can't say never, because you don't know what's going to happen. This is a very recent release, so for now we don't have to worry about, I think we don't have to worry about it going out of stock. Look, this card is absolutely fantastic. It is the Ten of Skies. And by the way, can I just say thank you for giving tarot readers the possibility to look at the Ten of Skies, which is actually renamed, you know, it's the Ten of Swords, basically. It's a suit of air. And so you'll normally see this card as a person lying on the ground, you know, being hit by 10 swords, which is a bit of an overkill if you ask me, because you don't necessarily need 10 swords, and where do you even find 10 swords to kill someone? I do appreciate the fact that there are a few creators out there that understand that many tarot readers like myself, we use numerology and also sequence. I read tarot in a sequence throughout the minors. And so to me, the Ten of Air is not necessarily, let's put it this way, I prefer to be able to read it in a different way if I want to, or if I feel that I must. This deck, the color palette is just absolutely superb, and I need to speed this up, because otherwise I'm gonna spend you know, the whole time talking about this deck, but there's other decks I want to talk about. But in any case, this is my response to Beautiful in Design, the prompt Beautiful in Design. And the next prompt is Beautiful Color Palette, and in this case I had to go with this deck. And this deck, by the way, is very mirror-like, so we're gonna see everything. We're gonna see my filming gear, we're gonna see my camera, gonna see myself, hi! So it's a mirror-like box. It's the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. You'll probably know or you heard about this deck because it's really high maintenance. It even came with this cloth in order to be able to, you know, just clear out all of the fingerprints that you're gonna inevitably leave on the back of the cards, being them, you know, mirror-like. But when it comes to color palette, I mean, this deck, it is so beautiful. I mean, look at this pink and the contrast between the pink and this lime green. It's everything. I love this deck. I have two versions of this deck. I think I have the second edition, first printing. Anyway, the one with the devil with all of the sentences around him. And I absolutely adore that edition as well. This is probably my favorite one, but when it comes to the devil, that is my devil. That is my own personal devil. Yes, I have a personal devil. And today, actually today, my personal devil has been very strong and very vocal because I've been berating myself. I made a mistake at work, and when you work in finance, in the stock market, a mistake can actually cost you a lot of money. So the devil is like, you're not worth it, you can't do this, blah, blah, blah. Here you go, there's the devil. But this is not the one with all of the sentences around it. But anyway, I still like it. And it's fine because, you know, if you extrapolate that from the context and you look at life in general, we make mistakes, we're humans, what am I supposed to do? You know, that's my answer to the devil. Yeah, well, I made a mistake, so be it. It is what it is. I love the color palette of this deck. Did I say that? So this is absolutely magnificent for me. It really makes me feel like I'm looking at, you see, Justice? I'm looking at something out of a swatch book, for example. I do keep a lot of swatch books because of my many fountain pen inks. One day I'll show you. And it is a very calming activity for me to be swatching inks because it just relaxes me, and I put on some relaxing hand pan music in the background. Alex Dav is one of my favorite artists when it comes to hand pan music, and yeah, I just love being in the company of this deck because of its color palette. So this is my response to the prompt, beautiful color palette. And the next one is a very important thing for me. The prompt says beautiful in connection. Now, connections are the reason why I'm here, the reason why I'm doing these videos, the reason why I'm posting I'm posting my videos out in the tarot community. I believe in creating meaningful connections between each other, between ourselves. That is an extremely important thing for me. And when I looked at this prompt, I had to think really hard, and I actually came up with this deck. So the bag has got nothing to do with the deck. It's just a really nice, beautiful bag that I bought in Thailand, made by a community of children. That is, you know, it's just a result of one of the many charity organizations that actually are in Thailand that are doing fantastic work with kids. And with boys, with whomever wants to, they play soccer. So they actually teach them, they do some championships and everything. And with you know, everyone else that wants to do something with arts and crafts, then they make these kind of bags, which are absolutely perfect for tarot decks. So I bought a few. This is a French deck. It's by Camille, and it's called Le Tarot de Paysage Intérieur. If you watch my channel, you will have seen this deck many times because I absolutely love it. This is a connection to me because I follow Camille's account on Instagram. I loved looking at this deck. I'm just going to put the Three of Swords aside because I'm going to talk about it in a moment. So I watched this tarot deck grow, literally being created, and it was a fantastic experience. She's a wonderful paintress and I love her work. And I have to say, she's based in France, so I reached out to her. It was long story short, it was let's say shipping out of France was a bit of a problem. For some reason they thought, you know, the airplane, I think it was Air France, thought that it was a flammable material. And you know, I was thinking, sorry, I'm chuckling, but I'm just thinking to myself, well, if you set fire, of course it's flammable, but it doesn't really you know, it's not something that you would think immediately as flammable material, but in any case, so it was sent back to Camille, but she persisted, she sent it back, and this time she even, you know, she paid for shipping herself. And this deck arrived in Australia when the day after I had left for my winter/summer holidays. I say winter/summer because it's winter in Australia, but we always go to the northern hemisphere where it's summer. And so I had to wait to be back. It was held in the deposit, and then I had to pick it up. Finally, when I got it, it was like a reunion. And this is a fantastic deck. And this deck represents for me the meaningful connection that I have with Camille through her deck, because I will never be tired of promoting this deck. It's absolutely fantastic. I love it. It does inspire a lot of feelings. It's one of those decks, and I just absolutely love it. So this is the, let's say, the introduction of this deck. Now, let's talk about the Three of Swords. So I was saying this deck is in French. By the way, Camille is working on a second edition of this deck, so stay tuned. It looks absolutely marvelous. So this is the Le Trois d'Épée, obviously being a French deck. Épée means swords, so this is the Three of Swords, but you don't necessarily need to speak French because it is quite clear that it is the Three of Swords. How much do I love this card? I cannot say. It's a lot. I look about this card and I remember Camille's description of this card. She was saying that this person has been worrying so much that they actually dug a hole because they're pacing back and forth. And they dug a hole because they keep on worrying and they're restless. And apart from the fact that, again, I appreciate the opportunity of reading the Three of Swords as the numerological meaning of the growth of the three in the suit of the mind. So of course it comes also, if you read by sequence like I do, the sequence after the Two of Swords, Two of Swords is the impossibility to choose because you don't have access to the necessary information to take a decision. So you're stuck and you are in danger as well. The longer you hesitate to choose, the more you worry, which is exactly what happened to me in the last couple of days when I finally made that mistake, and so be it. But this is what I'm going through now. And to be honest with you, yes, I was pacing back and forth. This is the way I worry. I am restless. I generally speaking walk around a table. And it doesn't physically happen to me that I walk so much that I actually dig a hole, but, you know, metaphorically, I kind of do. And so I love to be able to create this bond with this card through this beautiful artwork. So this is my response to a beautiful In Connection deck, and it's the Tarot de Paysage Intérieur. So the next prompt is Beautiful in Wonder. And I had to go with a very recent deck that came into my collection just a couple of weeks ago, and it's the Tarot of Echoes by Anna Torian. And if you watch my channel, you will know how much I love Anna Torian's work. I have all of her decks, apart from the Hidden Waters, but one day. And it's just an amazing, really amazing deck. I love the Bones Through Earth Flesh. I know there's a little bit of animosity around that because of the Kickstarter delays and because of other things, but I did not buy through the Kickstarter. I actually spent a lot of money. Actually, I might think it's the most expensive deck that I've got, as in the amount of money that I pay for it in my collection. Not gonna say how much I spent on it because I think that I feel a bit embarrassed by it. In any case, if you want something, when you really want it, it felt right at the time. Would I buy it again, spending that much money? Probably. Because I was actually, you know, I really wanted that deck with the guidebook and everything. So, in any case, going back to this deck, which is the Tarot of Echoes. This deck, by the way, what did Anna say? I think she said her pre-order is finished, like she's run out of stock. However, it is in stock by Salon des Arcanes. Okay, so there is a French retailer that has this deck in stock if you still want to buy. Anna doesn't have any copies left. So, Tarot of Echoes, absolutely beautiful. Really, the reason why I chose this one for the Wanda, let's say Beautiful in Wanda prompt, is because every single thing about this deck makes me go, you know, like in awe, because it's just absolutely, starting from the backs. How beautiful are these? They're reversible, they're beautiful, I love them. The cardstock is, by the way, the same cardstock as the Oracle of Echoes, just in case you were wondering. And yes, Anna's art style is very recognizable. If you have the Bone and Earth Flash, if you have the Le Tarot Arthurien, which she has illustrated for Claire Duval, sorry about that, I mispronounced that. You will, the Oracle of Echoes, of course, you will definitely recognize it. But this deck is always surprising to me, because Anna can reach a depth that no one else can by knowing tarot as well as she does. That's something that I really, these two sentences need to go together. She's not just reaching the depth, she's reaching without the knowledge that she has got. And by the way, the Tarot of the Abyss has got very much the same style, because that's her signature art style, but it is in black, well, black and white, I would say black and sort of white with several different shades of grey, let's put it this way. I love the perspective of that deck. I think the Hangman on that deck is my favorite Hangman of all times, because it takes the perspective, so it doesn't show the actual person, but it shows what that person being hanged upside down sees. And it's just absolutely beautiful. It is an invitation, obviously, to, you know, step in my shoes, step in the shoes of the Hangman and have a look at what I see in order to be able to understand the world the way I understand it. And this deck is just a wonder, because it's absolutely amazing the way she connects, but it's also the way in which she portrays the emotions and the feelings in the faces of the characters. Like in this Six of Pentacles, for example, how beautiful is this expression? To me, this, let me just see if I can put it closer to the camera, to the lens. There is joy in this person. So the Six of Pentacles, traditionally, I don't really like the traditional symbology, because it mostly looks like charity. There's always someone very rich, well dressed, who's just almost throwing the money to someone who's actually begging for it. And yes, there is the sense of reciprocity, because obviously when you do something good, you feel good, etc., etc. But that to me is really patronizing, it feels like it. Whereas I see the numerology of the number 6. Number 6 is actually moving on. It's a moving on from the disruption of the 5. See, I do associate numerology with sequences. And I really do believe that the Six of Pentacles should show the equal amount of, you know, if you feel an emotion, both the giver and the receiver should feel the same way. And I absolutely love that there is satisfaction and joy in this person's face, because they're obviously feeding the pigeons. But there's the same sense of giving back in the pigeons. And I know they're not pigeons, they're not people, you would not see the expression. But I think that Anna really conveys this really, really well. And I appreciate that for it. And because, you know, I can look at these cards and always feel how beautiful they are and how meaningful they are. This is my response to the prompt Beautiful in Wanda. And the next prompt is Beautiful in Rhythm. And I know that rhythm can mean a number of things, but to me, when it's referring back to music, you know, it just feels like it's the right thing to choose, right? The right thing to do. So I actually backed a Kickstarter which is called the Rhythm and Soul Tarot, which is by the same author. Would I remember the name? Sorry, it just, right at this moment I don't remember the name, but it's the same author as the Southern Gothic Oracle and the Southern Botanic Oracle decks. And I think that's it, or they may have done something else. Roses and Dust Oracle, something like that. I don't have that one. It is very pricey in Australia, and it's a very, I think it's got almost not even 40 cards, so because of the box and everything, it's very pricey, and I just can't afford it. Maybe secondhand, but in any case, so that one I backed on Kickstarter, but obviously the Kickstarter campaign hasn't finished yet, so I don't have that deck yet. What I do have, however, which is actually referring back to music, is this one, and this is the Gothmancy deck. This deck by Stephanie Alia. This is from 2020. There's a couple of editions of this deck. I have to say I had a different edition. I couldn't stand the way the pack box was literally ruining the cards, because it was without this, I don't know how you call it, but you see the flap can actually go back a little bit. That, my friends, is enough, you know, for me to be able to actually pull out the cards without ruining everything. And so I'm quite happy to have this deck. I know this deck because I used to have it, as I said. And I know the guidebook and everything, but I had to rehome it because it was really driving me insane. And I had heard that a different edition was actually, you know, had solved that problem of the tap box. So I was waiting for this, and I finally got it out of one of the Facebook groups I'm in. And I have to say it's as beautiful as I remembered it, but it's also referring back to music. And if you're a kid of the 90s, as in you were old enough to appreciate the music of the 90s, you will recognize a lot of these characters, because most of them are from the 90s. There's also from the 80s, and is it also later than the 90s? I guess maybe from the noughties as well. But it is such a beautiful deck. I really love it. It's just, every time I see a singer, you know, and I recognize them, and I just, you know, it's a reason for me to actually reconnect with their music. And I love music. Music is fantastic. It's one of the things that I really appreciate in life. And there's something to say, there's not just musicians here. There's actually references to pop culture in general. Prodigy. And I do really appreciate that. For example, the reason why I got it back when I got the first copy of this deck was because I saw, I'm sorry I can't find him now, but I saw The Crow. So Eric Draven, you probably know the movie. Where are you? And so obviously, you know, it's referring back to the movie The Crow and the actor Brandon Lee, which was the son of Bruce Lee. And the fact, unfortunately, you know, he lost his life during the shooting of that movie, during the filming of that movie, because unfortunately it was an accident. And so what happened was that when this movie came out, it was extremely famous because there he is. I mean, this is The Crow, of course. It became extremely famous immediately. Because of what had happened. But I have to say, there's a couple of reasons why I love that movie so much. And I'm sorry that I'm talking about the movie and not about the deck. But you can see this deck, and this is the Addams Family, for example. How can you not love a deck that has got the Addams Family as a 10 of Pentacles? It's superb. So one other reason why I feel that movie is very important and has always been important in my life, these are the backs by the way, is because at a certain point one of the characters, and I'm not gonna give too much of a spoiler because I know that there's a new edition, a remake of that movie coming out with Billy Skarsgård. So at a certain point, one of the characters says it can't rain all the time, or it can't rain forever. My apologies, the first time I watched that movie, it was back in Italy, where unfortunately, at least back then, we watched the movies translated and dubbed over in Italian. So I'm just retranslating back in English, but the gist of that is it cannot rain all the time. At a certain point, it has to stop raining. I have to say, I know that it sounds, I don't know, silly, maybe? I don't know. But that sentence, that message, carry me over and carry me through some of the darkest times that I've had. Because, you know, I feel like it's always raining, and I always reminded myself, yeah, but statistically speaking, you know, statistically speaking, it cannot rain all the time. It has to stop. It has to stop. And so I am so very grateful that there is a card with Eric Draven the Crow in this deck. And but also about the Cure, you know, and the Addams family and everyone else that is depicted here. This is my response. The Gothmancy Tarot, or the Gothmancy deck, is my response to a deck that is beautiful in rhythm. And so the next prompt is very interesting, but I've shown this deck many times. So this is a deck that is beautiful in meaning. And I had to go with the 3M, what I call it the 3M. Let me just zoom out because this one is slightly bigger. So this is the Magician, Masters and Madman Tarot by Travis McHenry. This is a mass market deck, not the indie deck. I don't have the indie deck. If you do, by the way, could you please let me know in the comments below whether it's worth pursuing, trying and find it, because I know that it was a Kickstarter. I'm just asking it for, you know, details about the cardstock. Is it better than the Rockpool edition or not? Is it worth it? What about the guidebook and everything? I'm pretty happy with this edition, but just in case, because I love this deck so much that I would consider, you know, keeping the indie edition as a collectible item. If you have this deck, if you have been reading the guidebook, you will know why this is my pick for the most beautiful deck in meaning. Because this deck is composed of characters that have existed, so, you know, true existing people and historical figures, and it's really giving you the possibility to dive deeper into the meaning of the cards themselves, thanks to the guidebook, but also thanks to the research you can do afterwards, you know, by yourself if you're interested. For example, we got the High Priestess as Marie Laveau, and I've used this in one of my recent videos for my members. So we're doing a medium to advanced tarot course, and we're studying clusters and constellations. And the last one I did was about the constellation and clusters of the High Priestess. And you know, when you're doing something like that, you have to find a tarot deck that gives you a lot of meaning, because otherwise explaining something without any visual aid is difficult. And I'm a writer, so writers believe in show, don't tell, so I'm showing something. Marie Laveau as a High Priestess is perfect. You know, when you talk about constellations and clusters, which are concepts that I've taken from like 30 odd years of reading tarot as an experience, but also from a number of books that I've been reading about tarot. So the High Priestess is, on the one hand, she is the guardian of memories, because she embodies the all-knowing spirit of the self. It's not an easy concept to understand for humans, so for all of us, because no one has the perfect memory, but the High Priestess is either gifted or cursed, it's up to you to decide which one it applies, with the memory of all things, the memory of all facts. So what happens is that in order to find equilibrium, in order to find balance into her clusters, she also needs to reconnect to the Justice card, because the Justice card shows the High Priestess how to find balance, a perfect balance, between logic and intuition, and that's what the High Priestess misses out on when she's reversed. So the High Priestess reversed basically cannot find that balance, and the shadow side of the High Priestess is to be destroying everything, believing that that's the only way to move forward. That concept is pretty much what Marie Laveau stands for. So she's the Queen of Voodoo. You probably heard of Marie Laveau, you know, practicing out of New Orleans, obviously, and mostly she was producing and selling charms for clients about how to make money, how to create a love potion and stuff like that. However, because voodoo can also be seen as a destroying, I'm not gonna say destroying energy, yes and no, because voodoo historically, you know, has really deep roots, and obviously if we don't have the necessary knowledge to talk about that, we shouldn't. But I have been to a santero in Cuba and in Havana, and we've talked about that. We talked about the black side of voodoo. And it is a power that used it's a destroying power, let's put it this way. So I really love the opportunity that this deck, sorry, I realize that I'm not even going through the cards, I'm just talking, right? And I'm one that always likes to show the cards. So in any case, this is the guidebook, and it really gives you the opportunity to dig deeper as much as you want to, because the sky is the limit on each and every one of these cards, by giving you the opportunity to know something more about Franz Mesmer and mesmerization, for example, Aleister Crowley, for example, Edward Kelly, for example, and so on and so forth. And so there's a Thomas More, sorry, I should stop doing that, but there's so many things. So just looking at the card Marianne Lenormand, Saint Sebastian, just by looking at these cards, I feel like I want to do some Nicolas Flamel. I really should stop doing that. So it gives you the opportunity to go down the rabbit hole and do your own research about all of these cards, and thanks to that, because it's really well done, kudos to Travis McHenry, because he really knows tarot. The choices about these, I might say I might disagree with one or two of them, but it's impossible, you know, because we all have our own take on tarot, especially after so many years of reading it. Obviously you have a preference for one side of reading the card or another, depending also on the spread, the cards around it, etc, etc. But in any case, I would say 99% of the choices of this deck, or the characters portraying the cards in this deck, are absolutely spot on. And I love the fact that with this deck I have the opportunity to know more about tarot, you know, to just dig deeper and add an additional layer of knowledge to my knowledge, my own knowledge of tarot. So this is my answer to the prompt. A deck that is beautiful in meaning, and it's Magician, Matters and Madman Tarot. And the next prompt is a tarot that is beautiful in artfulness. And I had to go with the Circle of Doors Tarot. And the reason why I'm going with this deck is because I do believe that photography is an art. Being myself a photographer, having been working in photography for many years, I recognize the artistic value of photography, and this is a photographic deck, but it also uses, let's say, an artistic take on photography. It's a really beautiful concept as well, if you're not familiar with it. So this has been created by Anne Stavely and Jill Sutherland, and the guidebook has been written by Brian Duffy. But what you can see here, I don't know if it's clear, but in any case, what you can see here is the representation of an artwork that has been shown during the Festival of Burning Man in Nevada. I don't necessarily remember what year this is from, but it was a tent, and you could access this tent through a number of doors. And obviously what happened was that depending on which door you were choosing, you had a different experience. So this is art for me, and I will never stop, you know, declaring that yes, art is also photography, and photography is art. So there is a little bit of manipulation in here. So we call it, in photography, we call it the sandwich technique, in which you stack a few negatives on top of the other when you go in the darkroom to develop the film. There's a lot of meaning to be seen, to be read in these cards. There's a couple of renaming of just the chord cards, and also it does come with keywords because it does have a little bit of a thoth kind of influence, let's say. I really like what's been done with this deck from an artistic point of view. And I have to say, from a production point of view, it's also really beautiful. It's a linen, kind of very soft linen finish, front and back, but it does have a core. It is gilded in gold, but it's the kind of gold that actually doesn't chip that easily and doesn't scratch your fingers when you shuffle. It is, however, on the bigger side, as you can see. And as always, because of, you know, I have small hands, and I have a lot of injuries that I had from playing volleyballs. So I have to say, this card hurts a lot of people. It is a trigger for a lot of people. I'm not going to go into details. It was a trigger for me as well. I had my own personal experience with 9/11. But sometimes we need to face this as well. And so I haven't yet. So that's why I was hesitating and showing it. I know that I have to do some work on that, and you know, there's a lot of things we need to work on, of course, and tarot is really good for that. And I have to say, I'm working really hard with my Starlight members, because we're doing this kind of stuff. We're actually facing stuff that is difficult to face, and it is, I'm happy to say, I'm doing it at the same time as my Starlight members. And so we're all in the same boat, let's put it this way. And so it's very emotional sometimes, but it is what it is. It needs to manifest something. Really, really love this deck. I really do believe that it is artistic, and this is my response to the prompt, a deck that is beautiful in Artfulness. The next prompt is really interesting because I keep on talking about the tactile feel of a deck, and I feel like no one has picked up on that, but thankfully Christine Roselle actually talked about it. So the prompt is beautiful in haptics. Now, haptics is literally referring to the tactile feel of something. You'll be familiar with haptics because recently smartphones like iPhones, for example, have a tactile response to certain functions. So when you click on something, when you tap on something, you will have a response from the phone. That's translated into high technology haptics, but haptic is definitely referring back to the tactile feel. Now, we are creatures that experience the world through all of our senses, and that's a wonderful thing. And obviously our brain has a whole area which is actually related and dedicated to that, and it's the somatosensorial cortex. And so it's something that is extremely interesting to see, that we do have this experience also when we talk about decks. And this is the Somnia Tarot for me, that by Nicholas Bruno. So why is this my choice for this prompt? First of all, because of the cardstock, because it's a very soft battery feel, but also, for example, if we look at the box, this is a magnificent feel to me. These gold foil, for example, has a slight linen feel to it as well. It feels really sturdy in my hands. I do have the large guidebook, but even the smaller little white book has a really decent kind of feel to it. The deck itself feels like it's a very good weight. It's a nice weight. It feels like it's imposing but not too much, and it's the right kind of, let's say, the weight of it, it's relevant enough. So you feel it when you got it in your hands. I don't know if you understand me, but sometimes decks are either too heavy or too light, let's say. So this is really good. And the best feature for me is this buttery feel of the cardstock. So if you're familiar with the really old cardstock from US games that we all call the buttery kind of feel, this is the same. And it's just a joy to handle this deck, you know, to shuffle it. It's a joy. It's a bit on the larger side, but it's beautiful. It's a fantastic feel that you've got when you rub the two cards together, because it's very smooth, velvety almost, but not the velvety of the rose petal kind of card of a finish, which, you know, recently I have to say they got better and better at producing that. But the very first example of rose petal, and I'm thinking about the Healing Waves Tarot, for example, they were just not very practical because the cards were just sticking together. But this is, it feels like a charm. You know, let me just do it with less cards. Look at that. You can almost decide the spaces, you know, you want to find the cards between one and the other. It's fantastic. And as a tarot reader, and not just a collector, I do appreciate that, because when you're reading a deck, you need it to be practical. And so this is definitely my response to a deck that is beautiful in Haptics. So, sorry, I think I actually skipped a prompt. I just realized it now. So let me just back up a couple of prompts, because I missed out on a deck that is beautiful in association, because I found this deck on the pile and I was like, oh, I didn't talk about you. So this is my response. It's a deck that is beautiful in association, and it's the Curious Travel Tarot. And yes, you guessed it, this is my response because I love traveling. I live for traveling. I basically have my whole life organized around travel. There's no two ways around that. It's myself and my husband. We met traveling. I would have not been able to spend my life with him had he not liked traveling. To this day, I cannot understand that someone doesn't like to travel, because to me it's the essence of life. And by travel, I don't mean tourism, I mean actual traveling, as in going off the beaten path and just, you know, connecting with a different culture and trying to understand and speak maybe a couple of words of their language, and try different food, and making friends on the way, and staying friends forever even though you live in the opposite side of the countries, and then sometimes just meeting up again in a different country. That is absolutely fantastic. I have been doing that ever since I was 14 years old. I have been to 84 countries, and I cannot, my life would be very sad if I couldn't travel. And it has been very, very sad during the pandemic, because Australia closed down the borders, meaning that you, not only like in many other countries in the world, you couldn't come in, but we were forbidden to live in the country. And that was, don't get me started, because otherwise, you know, I get very emotional when I talk about this, so I'd rather not, because today has already been emotional, you know, that devil card we were talking about before. So I'm just gonna say that this is my response to the prompt, beautiful in association, because the Curious Travel deck, or the Curious Travel Tarot deck, I always associate that with traveling, and traveling for me is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And finally, and last but not least, is a deck that is beautiful in senses, and I had to go with the Amber and Aura Tarot, because this deck is, I don't know, it's really fulfilling all of the needs of a tarot deck when I actually feel like I need something from a deck, which is, let me explain, because I know that it doesn't make much sense saying it like that. So let's put it this way. I use tarot for reading for myself, I use tarot for reading for clients, I use tarot for, for YouTube, for Instagram, for Facebook, I use tarot with my members, I use tarot, when do I not use tarot? For meditation, for journaling, you name it. However, 99% of the time, I don't need a specific deck. Yes, of course, there are specific uses for different decks in my practice. And so obviously if I need something for meditating, I would choose a specific deck. But I don't need it as in I feel the need for it. When I feel the need for a certain type of deck is when I find myself in a very uncomfortable situation, when I feel blue, when I feel down, when I feel like I need a hug from a deck. And then that's when I actually need it. And when I need a deck, it needs to be a deck that fulfills, let's say, many different things, many different requirements. And this deck does. So this is the Amber and Aura Awakening Edition Tarot by Jamie Richardson. I have to say, unfortunately, Jamie has stepped away from tarot. So this deck is not only out of print, it has become really hard to find. I have 2 editions of this deck because I have the original edition as well. I prefer the Awakening because of the color palette. I just absolutely feel that this deck is everything that is important to my senses. It's beautiful, so it's important for my eyes, the sound. See, this is ASMR for me. It's just absolutely fantastic. Tactile feel to it is glorious, just as much as the Somnia. The sound of it's fantastic as well. Even the smell is just gorgeous. I mean, there's no other adjective that I can point to because it's just absolutely fantastic for all of the senses. But it's also because there is a 6th sense, there is the sense of intuition, and this deck is fantastic for intuitive kind of readings. And I am definitely, now that I look at it, I feel that I need it today, and I'm definitely going to do a reading for myself later. So this was the last prompt, and it was a deck that is beautiful in senses, and my response is Amber and Aura Tarot The Awakening Edition. This was such a fun tag, and I will wish for everyone else to join in because I really loved it. So thank you so much, Christine Roselle, for initiating this tag. And these are my hashtag 10 beautiful decks. So thanks so much for staying with me till the end of this video. See you next time.